Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. My name is Andrew Claudio, a.k.a. GMAC, and it is time to preview another Knicks matchup, this time on Monday night against the Detroit Pistons at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks improved to 26-14 on the season, so by my math, tonight would be game 41 of the season. We have reached the midway point, ladies and gentlemen, and by my math, a Knicks win would put them on pace for 54 wins this season, their highest total since my beloved 2012-13 New York Knicks led by Karl-Anthony. It's been a season of highs and a season of lows at certain points for the Knicks. Yesterday being a pretty significant high and low, where we thought we might have lost Jalen Brunson for a significant time because we were all thinking the worst, but we were also enjoying his 44-point performance against the Milwaukee Bucks. So we'll see what they have for not an after show, for a sequel on Monday night against the Detroit Pistons team. Speaking of a significant high, last season we were talking about losing streaks, historically bad losing streaks, and whether Monty Williams was money laundering at this point, especially when you look at the improvement that Bickerstaff has done. This Detroit Pistons team this season is 20-19 on the year. They have won 9 of their last 11 games. They potentially have an all-star in Cade Cunningham. And I am thrilled to talk about a very enjoyable Pistons team with someone I enjoy talking about just about anything with, my colleague in the game theory world, but also one of the hosts of the Pistons Pulse podcast, Mr. Bryce Simon, Mr. Motor City Hoops. Welcome, Bryce, back to Knicks Film School.
What's up, GMAC? The only narrative, the only agenda I have in the NBA world is B. Bobbler being the official bobblehead of the NBA, or maybe just the Pistons or the Knicks. I don't know. People can say whatever they want about me. That is the only agenda I actually have. And listen, GMAC, I love you. Mm-hmm. You're my guy. I am a teacher, though. Let's do something real quick.
What'd I do?
The New York Knicks are 25-14.
No, they're 26-14. Did they win yesterday?
Okay, so B-Ball Reference has not updated yet. Okay, I was like, my guy, 25-14 is 39. Game 40 is not half of 82. Like, let's read it. Okay, so I love B-Ball Reference, but they are a little bit, no, I don't want to say slow. It's a lot of work, I'm sure, to put all that stuff in. So, okay, it's just not quite updated. We're recording very early this morning.
The algorithm hasn't updated. You're right.
Yeah,
Whatever thing has to connect to the other thing that triggers a change in schedule. I'm now quadruple checking that the Knicks, yes, they're 20.
No, you're right. NBA.com has them at 26-14. Like, I was not trying to call you out. I could just I could see the comments scrolling underneath the video, like, GMAC doesn't know math. GMAC doesn't know the Knicks records. GMAC this. And I'm like, okay, let's just knock this out real fast. Like, but why would I doubt you? You know what you're doing.
That is a live representation of the difficulties of my job, because these are things I've had with a lot of our hosts at Knicks Film School, where I'll say the mean thing to them. Like, there's one of our hosts that showed up with messy hair once, and I was like, hey, go brush your hair. And it looked like I was calling him out. I was like, no, you don't get it. If I don't say it, millions of commenters will, because we can trust YouTube commenters to just politely say something, right? No.
And you know this from game theory. I don't watch the comments on game theory because, as I've stated, I am a 5 love languages. If people don't know, it's important life skill. Like, truly, it changed my marriage. But I am a words of affirmation. That is very strongly my love language. It hurts whenever I see people like call me an idiot or say I'm stupid, or more importantly, it's like if they say I don't do the work, I'm like, listen, you can disagree with me, but I work really, really hard at what I do. At least respect that, if nothing else. And so that's what I was trying to do, is like, I'd rather you hear it from me in a very nice, joyful way as opposed to the comments. But of course, you're the man. Why would I should have even thought for a second you could have been wrong.
As somebody who shares said love language, I appreciate the affirmation that you're giving me this morning, Bryce, which I will now reverse back onto the Detroit Pistons. Because it's just been it's been a very fun season to watch from afar, which ironically, it's a 500 season, but based off of last year, when at this point last season, I believe the losing streak was still going on, or it had just ended, I believe. It ended the day the Knicks traded for Anunoby, because that night they played the Raptors.
Yeah. So they were 2-1 to start that season, and they lost 28 straight. So yeah, it was over. But yeah, vibes are slightly different.
Yeah. So going to that, the vibes are better. Have expectations changed for this year now that that seems like the Cooper flagship has somewhat failed.
Yeah.
Now, like just relatively simply, they're in a playoff race at the moment. So how are the vibes in Detroit at the moment?
Vibes are good. They are. It's way different. This is a top 20 offense. It's a top 18 offense and defense, as we said on Monday morning. It was funny because I was listening to the Hoop Collective, and I think Bontip said they have a respectable 17th defensive rating, and Windhurst tried to stop him, and they're like, no, Brian. You remember what this team was last year. 17th is more than respectable when you're talking about the Detroit Pistons. And so the fact this team is 500, I think if I have one thing that I'm a little bit nervous with the vibes, it's that we're getting a little too far ahead. Like all of a sudden now the expectations have gone from, hey, be better, be competitive, be fun to watch, be competent. Let us see what Cade is to, I think this is going to be a top 6 seed in the playoffs. I think and I'm like, and here's the thing. The next few weeks may be a reality check a little bit. They play the Knicks tonight. Then they play the Pacers, then the Suns, then the Rockets, then the Hawks, then the Magic, then the Cavs, and then the Pacers again, and then the Mavericks, who may be healthier by then. That rounds out January. That's not exactly the schedule they've played over the last few weeks. If they stay 500 through that, this is a real play-in team.
So anybody who watched Game Theory last night or listened to Game Theory last night will understand why I'm highlighting that I did my Pistons prep now.
Tim Hardaway Jr., baby. Tim Hardaway Jr.
To your point, just going over some schedule stuff with the Pistons. They have the second hardest schedule in the East the rest of the way. Obviously, the Knicks have the hardest schedule in the East the rest of the way. So there's a hint of schedule stuff going on there. The last 11 games that they're 9-2. Ironically, it's not like this crazy net rating. Usually when you see these winning streaks or stretches, it's like, oh, they're plus 12 net rating. They're first in defense, second in offense or whatever. And this is a team that won 3 very close road games, not diminishing them whatsoever. Like it's an important thing to win close games.
Sure.
And it's like a plus 4 net rating over that stretch. So if anything, the learning experience from some of the younger guys to win close games and just how to win games in the NBA after the experience of last season seems important, while also the veterans coming into, ironically, the veterans being Tim Hardaway Jr., which say that to a Knicks fan that was around for both Tim Hardaway Jr. stints, and it's surreal. So where I go to with my next question is like, I mean, it really is the most enjoyable part of this. Has it been like the expectations, like to your point, not getting, have they exceeded too far? But are you basically, what's the most enjoyable part of this?
It hasn't changed anything for me. Because here's what I get to actually do now. And you know this about me, Jamie. Like, I just want to watch the games. I don't care about any of the other stuff, right? I don't know what the court design is because I don't pay attention. I couldn't tell you what color of jerseys they wore last game. I won't be able to tell you what color of jerseys they wear tonight. Like, I don't know if they wore their blacks or their whites or their reds or their whatever. Like, the only time I noticed a difference is the the in-season tournament or whatever we're supposed to call it, because NBA Cup, because the court is so drastic. It obviously and my wife is like, why does the court look like that? But I actually get to evaluate basketball. So here's where I will shameless plug Motor City Hoops Substack. Knicks fans, go read it Tuesday morning. Don't subscribe. Just read it Tuesday morning. There will be like a page of notes about the Knicks, maybe some videos depending on what happens, how close the game is, all of that. I get to write notes about a team that plays competent, competitive basketball, that makes shots and does some interesting things. And listen, it's not all perfect, right? Like there's plenty of which they would navigate screens better. How are they going to guard Karl-Anthony Towns because they can't guard stretch bigs? But to my point, we get to collect data. And this is fun for me. It's more important for the front office. Last year sucked, not just because they lost, but because you couldn't collect data. What did we learn about Cade Cunningham? What did we learn about Jaden Ivey? What did we learn about Jalen Duren? Nothing, because it was such a dumpster fire. This year, I can go into tonight's game knowing this is a 500 basketball team, and I can evaluate Jalen Duren versus Karl-Anthony Towns and learn, has he gotten better after getting demolished by Nikola Vucevic and Brook Lopez and the stretch bigs in this league? And if Jalen, even if they lose tonight, GMAC, if Jalen Duren takes that away or shows progress, that's a data point. If Asar Thompson starts on Jalen Brunson and is successful in some capacity, whatever that success looks like, that's a data point. There were no data points last year, which essentially wasn't just a losing season, it was a wasted season.
So there's a lot of Knicks fans that can relate to those wasted seasons. The 2010s were filled with them, where there really was no information gathering throughout, to your point, data collecting throughout the season. And I think the weird thing about the Tibbs era is that they never had that season either. The information gathering season had a push for the playoffs the first year, where Julius Randle, like the information we gathered was, is Julius Randle a perennial All-NBA player now?
Was that the first round against the Hawks where everybody? Yeah,
your coming out party as well as Julius Randle.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So the following season, they sign Evan Fournier and Pistons legend Evan Fournier. Also Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks,
all
Kevin
Pistons,
all guys that were part of the Pistons at some point. And they go 37 and 45. And there was really there was some RJ Barrett information gathering that season because they gave him like a 30 usage from New Year's Eve on. But that season felt like a wasted opportunity because you didn't really learn much about Obi Toppin, didn't learn much about Emmanuel Quickley. Tibbs never gave Quickley the reins as a starting point guard and was going to Alec Burks at the starting point guard stretch for the majority of the season. And when I look at what the Pistons are doing, it's a very traditional rebuild, but for a team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2008, this actually seems like the first in a while step toward like the progression that you need to see in a traditional rebuild, where it's like, oh, one of our guys takes a leap. To your point, some of the younger guys are getting more experience. And people probably heard me clunkily ask the last question. I had two questions in one because I want to talk about Cade and what he's done this season and the biggest reasons for why he's contributed. But looking at some of the numbers on Cleaning the Glass, the Pistons' three highest minutes totals this year are Cade Cunningham, Malik Beasley, and Tobias Harris. And they're all +8 at least on the season. Ironically, I can't get over what you said to me last year when the losing streak was going on when we first met. And you were like, when Bojan Bogdanovic comes back, it'll be so helpful because Cade won't be doing it all by himself. And I watched Bojan Bogdanovic. That was like the savior to come back and save the Pistons. And I guess, is it really just that simple? He has trusted veterans that fit his style more while he's also taking a leap. And are the numbers playing out on the court as well? That when Cade is playing next to guys that actually know where to be and know what to do because they've been in the league long enough, it's led to him being more successful as well.
Oh, yes. That's the short answer. And I'll give you the long answer in a second. I also want to say my expectations are different. This is the first year or fifth year that I've covered, content created, whatever you want to say I do for the Pistons, not for the Pistons, but around the Pistons, whatever, what we all do. You know what? The most games I've watched this team, and I was not a fan before those 5 years. I didn't grow up a Pistons fan. You know this about me. Some people may not. This was just a kind of a random thing I jumped into. The most wins I've ever watched a Pistons team win is 23. That's the most.
And they already have 20. Yeah.
And they already have 20. So it's like they surpassed the 14 win total a long time ago this year. For me, it's a 500 season is unimaginable. Okay. Cade Cunningham.
Let's do it.
All you have to do is put actual veterans around him. Tobias Harris hasn't even been great this year. He's just an actual professional. Is he an overpaid professional? Sure. Absolutely. I think it would be crazy to argue otherwise. I don't even know if his professionalism and all of that is when you put all of that into it, I don't know that he's still worth his money. But what else were they going to do with that money? Wish it was a team option. Maybe it hurts some of their flexibility moving forward, but he can run an occasional mid-post isolation. He started to make threes at a better clip. Tim Hardaway Jr. You know what? I don't know this to be true. Tim Hardaway Jr. is what in charges taken in the NBA GMAC?
He is first in charges taken, ahead of Jalen Brunson and maybe Tamani Kamara. And there's another name in there.
He's second behind my guy, Tamani Kamara. Do not disrespect Tamani Kamara.
Apologies.
Tim Hardaway Jr. is second. You know what Cade Cunningham has started to do over the last couple weeks?
Take charges.
Take charges. It's funny how that works when you have a veteran come in and do something, and then the younger guys go, that looked like it was productive and impactful. And the coaches said, hey, great job, Tim Hardaway Jr. You can stay in the starting lineup, even though you can't stay in front of anybody at the point of attack, but you will lay your body on the line, even after taking a ridiculous shot to the head. Like, I'm so glad he's okay. And he comes back and he just keeps doing it. And young guys can look at that and go, oh, that's how you, and even if it's not that specifically, maybe it's, okay, well, I'll find a way to impact the game as an offensive rebounder, or I'll set screens harder, or I'll, whatever. And then here's the other, Malik Beasley, shooting incredible. Like, he has a real argument for sixth man of the year. Like, you think he's in the conversation, depending on how many games the Pistons win and all of that. I would say Pritchard is probably still the front runner. Some Cavs guys, like a combination of Cavs guys, probably have some sort of argument. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but like, whenever I was in Denver and they did the JB pregame interview and somebody asked about Malik Beasley, the first thing he said was not the 3-point shooting. The first thing he said was his personality. He said he has an infectious personality, and you can see it play out on the bench. So I think what Trajan did a good job of was, and I don't know what your guys' experience with Tim Hardaway Jr. was in this capacity, but it seems like Trajan brought in guys, veterans, that not only space the floor, which to your original question has made Cade helped Cade show his talent is the better phrasing of that, but also guys that are just like, it looks like they want to be here. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. runs off the bench after a Ron Holland corner 3 the other day. Beasley is always talking and infectious. Now winning helps this as well. But that was an underrated aspect that I think Trajan did a good job of, and JB deserves credit for also.
I believe they call them vibes guys in the league today. The campaigns who's currently on the Knicks, the Theo Pinsons from way back in the day with the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks have had so many good vibes guys over the last couple of years. I mean, Josh Hart is the embodiment of just good vibes in general on the court and energize a bunny at the same time. So yeah, it doesn't shock me at all that getting a bunch of good vibes guys after the vibes were so bad last season, are helping the Pistons just create an environment that not only do people want to be there, but guys want to get better. For those that didn't catch the Game Theory episode, do you have Cade Cunningham as an all-star this season?
I do. And I think his case has only gotten stronger. I know there's like some things you can pick at with like the overall true shooting or effective field goal percentage or whatever. This guy's averaging 24, 9.5 and just under 7 rebounds. He's doing it on 46, 38. Actually, his free throw percentage is somewhat disappointing. It's under 80% right now, which is kind of weird for him. The turnovers, they are high. There are some warts with the game. There are some things he needs to figure out. His rim finishing probably being the biggest thing why his overall field goal percentage isn't better. He is probably a neutral defender now that we're 39 games into the season. I would say the first 10 or 15, he was a plus defender. I think that's come down just a little bit, but he does everything. So that's what, I just gave Beasley, all these guys a ton of credit, right? It wasn't that it made Cade better. It just allowed Cade to unlock how talented he is. Shocker, you put floor spacing around a dude that can really orchestrate the offense, and he looks really good. His biggest areas of growth is the 3-point shooting for me.
So I'm trying to look up, by the way, who is the 6th man of the year front runner, because it's also lost on me who else would be in the conversation. I'm sure there's a Memphis guy I'm forgetting as well.
Well, what's hard is Malik Monk is now starting in Sacramento, so that's gonna take him out of the equation if he continues to do that.
And is Beasley's now the starter too?
It alternates, it changes. Okay. So like Wendell Moore Jr. got the first chance. Asar got the second chance, and then Asar got sick. So Beasley stepped in, and then I think Hardaway Jr. may have missed a game. So then they started together. I think what they settle into is, I would assume what we see tonight, if fully healthy, is actually Cade, Asar, Hardaway Jr., Harris, Duran. I think Asar ends up settling into that role.
So this, according to most books, Peyton Pritchard, as you said, is the front runner. DeAndre Hunter as
that's the one.
Second name.
He's been incredible. He just doesn't miss.
And Amen Thompson, Asar's brother. This has to be a mistake. Bradley Beal is currently listed as fourth for sixth man of the year odds, even though he just got sent to the bench like a week ago. So light your money on fire if you'd like to. Malik easily has the sixth best odds, to your point.
And Amin is another one that might play himself out of, I don't know what like the minimum number, but like Amin has been starting there in Houston. And as Sam and I discussed yesterday, where the Rockets segment was almost purely Amin Thompson love, we would like to see Amin Thompson just stay in that starting lineup in some way.
Well, I'll say this. I actually don't know if there is a calculated minimum number of games you have to start, because 2 years ago, Emmanuel Quickley started 19 games over that season, and it was ruled that, or it was considered by most of the voters that made the case for Malcolm Brogdon
that it was too many.
Quickly started too many games because he started 19, even though like the statistical case was like he's actually been the best bench player of the year. And part of being a bench player is that when the starter goes down,
you step in.
Bingo, which is what Naz Reid did last year when the Timberwolves needed him, and why he won the award. So make up your mind, voters. Which is it? Not that I'm still bitter that Emmanuel Quickley lost that to somebody from Boston.
You know this. I hate it. Like I don't like awards. Sam makes me do it. I think we're actually doing it this week on
Thursday.
Game Theory,
yeah, so tune in for Bryce's awards on Thursday.
I will not enjoy it for a second.
Well, what I have enjoyed is just your overall demeanor, because you're not covering a team that might not get a win for a matter of weeks. And, coming into this matchup, the Pistons snapped a 14-game losing streak against the Knicks individually in their last game. I know Karl-Anthony Towns didn't play, but I mean, the Pistons still got that win, and that was a very impressive performance by Cade Cunningham at Madison Square Garden. Coming into this one, but I mean, let's just simply say it. If the Pistons win tonight, it will be because blank happened. But fill in the blank.
Cade takes over again. I remember you text me. No, maybe somebody else text me. I was kind of hard on Mikal Bridges in my.
I did. Okay, your notes in the Substack were like, oh, so you see it too.
Yeah, okay. So it was like. So to be fair, I mean, it's out there. So I think I wrote Bridges not as good defensively as what I thought. He struggled. He's taking Cade and not doing well. And then the progression got to he can't guard Cade. And Cade was just incredible in that game. Listen, Karl-Anthony.
Let me jump in to plug the Substack even more. The line that got me, because it was the question Knicks fans have been asking themselves all year, and I guess content creators too. It's like, this can't be the Mikal Bridges that the Knicks traded 5 picks for. It's like, you don't say. Now, he's been much better. He's been significantly better, especially over the course of December, especially since they've started to switch things up a little bit. He is still mostly guarding the point of attack, but they have him off ball a little bit. Josh Hart will take some turns. Deuce McBride will take some turns. They've switched a little bit more. They're still playing their conventional drop, but I'm hoping we see a better version of him on Monday night. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so I want to ask you this. Okay. I still think OG is the guy that should take the Cade matchup. If I was Tibbs, I would put OG and just say, OG, just be very physical. Like, see if you can win. And listen, Cade has gotten stronger. I think he's gotten better playing through physicality and all of that. But I would try that more than Bridges. But they just don't do that. Like, they want OG to be the off-ball defender and Mikal to be the point of attack. Is that why they won't do that?
I think it's somewhat of a proof of concept that they're trying to go for. Like, you went and got Mikal Bridges so he could be the point of attack lockdown defender. And then you have OG as this free safety who is elite at digs. And like, you try to drive past OG Anunoby, it usually leads to a pick six going the other way. There have been moments throughout the season where I'm like, just switch this, Tibbs. Christmas Day being the biggest one, where it wasn't even the Mikal matchup. I wanted Anunoby guarding Wembanyama at one point, and down the stretch he did, and it's the most effective the Knicks were against an actual alien on Christmas Day. So that I agree with you. There were times where I wish he was the initial point of attack defender. I think that issue is mostly going to show itself during the playoffs, and it'll mostly resolve itself because he'll start out with Mikal on whoever, like, pick your main point of attack guy. And by game 3, if it's not effective, okay, OG, you're now the main point of attack defender here, which that's what we saw last year, where it was like, okay, Dante, you're guarding Tyrese Maxey. All right, Josh Hart, you're guarding Tyrese Maxey. And by like Deuce McBride, you take your turn on Maxey. And then by game 5, it was like, all right, just OJ, you got him. And even then, it wasn't like super effective. It was just better than the rest of the other options. So I don't disagree with you. I wonder if there's still like, it's honestly the same conversation we've had about Cat at the 5. And it's like, yes, you're right. There probably are other options that could work better. This is the information gathering season where you need to find out if this works, because then you can reevaluate in the future.
No, I love that. That makes a lot of sense. Like, this is what we brought Mikal to do. Let's see if he can do it. It seems like he's figured out a lot of the offensive stuff. I mean, every time I watch him, it seems like, going back to Christmas Day, it seems like he's really making shots and kind of found his flow offensively. The other thing would be Ausar didn't. So they had J.I. in the first game. Ivy's obviously out. For any Knicks fans who don't, he broke his leg a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Ausar, this is a huge game for me. Like, literally the biggest things I want to take out. I've seen Cade go to Madison Square Garden and ball, right? So I don't really care about that. I want to see Ausar on Jalen Brunson, and I want to see Jalen Duren on Karl-Anthony Towns. And I don't really care a whole lot about anything else. That is the data collection I have for Monday, January 13th, Pistons versus Knicks. Can Jalen Duren not give Karl-Anthony Towns 6 3-pointers tonight because he's slow and doesn't have a sense of urgency closing out, whether in transition or on a pick and pop or whatever? Can Ausar Thompson navigate ball screens with Jalen Brunson? Can he stay down whenever Brunson gets him into the lane and gives him the shot fake and the step through and the bodies? Because Ausar's kind of the ideal matchup for Jalen Brunson to give Jalen Brunson issues. If there is one, like, I don't want to discredit Jalen Brunson and how incredible he is, but if you said uber athlete with length, I feel like that's the guy, and some strength. I feel like that's the guy you would want to try on Jalen Brunson. I'm terrified Brunson just shot fakes him twice in the first 2 minutes and gets him in foul trouble. But if those guys hold up defensively, Detroit has a chance. And then Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. or somebody like that has to get it going from 3 for the Pistons to score enough.
So 2 things. First of all, we're recording this bright and early on Monday morning. It's currently 8:10 Eastern. I have no idea if Jalen Brunson's playing tonight.
Oh, yes. That is
there's that element. There's that element of it too.
As a Pistons fan, that would be very disappointing, because I care way more about watching Ausar and even Ron Holland try to guard Jalen Brunson than I do whether the Pistons win this game.
So to the other side of it, where from a Knicks perspective, what I'd like to see, this is a Pistons team, which I said they're 9-2 over their last 11, with some guys coming in, like, as a team, they're shooting 39% from 3, but there's some just red hot shooters on the, we've talked about Beasley. I think the last time the Knicks played the Pistons, he made 7 threes. So we've seen him go off, but Tim Hardaway Jr. in these last 11,
he's on a heater right now. Yeah.
48% from 3. Tobias Harris, only 4 attempts a game, but 41% from 3. Fontecchio, 40% from 3. This is the thing that stinks about Jaden Ivey, 61.5% in the 5 games during the stretch that he was really before he got hurt. Even Cade is at like 36, and the Knicks have just been getting torched in drop. Now, there was a hint of an effort thing. Like, I know fans like to, when they come for Tibbs, they criticize the scheme and like, why are they giving up so many open threes? Yes, like, this is the thing you risk with drop coverage, but there is an effort thing that goes into it. I just don't think they were playing with the significant, the appropriate amount of effort, which I hear myself having the conversation that I normally have. It's like, well, yeah, it's because of the minutes they're playing so many, which there may be some truth to that. But the point being, the Pistons hitting threes tonight would be we're doing this again. Like, these guys coming in red hot shooting. Has that been any type of a trend in their wins as well? That's like, oh, like, they're just not missing from 3 tonight.
Yeah, I think as you say those numbers, so Ivy's is the one that stands out as the most, like, I don't want to, like, over the top.
Yeah, 61% would be, is over the top. Yeah.
But, like, I think Fontecchio is a high 30% 3-point shooter. I think Tobias Harris should be a high 30% three-point shooter on the shot diet that he's getting. Tim Hardaway Jr. always does this, right? Like he's going to go through a stretch where he shoots 50, and then he'll go through the stretch where he shoots 25, and then it'll meet in the middle. Beasley has consistently been a 39% three-point shooter on volume in his shot diet all season. So I guess to answer, I think they're making good shots. Like I think Cade creates good looks for them. JB runs some interesting actions for them. Here's another thing. Asar will push transition. This is something that New York did not see in the first matchup. Last game, there was 3 or 4 possessions where he grabbed, he went, and he created wide open 3-point looks in transition. And he is pretty good at that already. Ron Holland, also a very good transition player. So you just talk about like energy that these young guys can do that, get out in transition. I would just say they make the shots that they should make. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're just, oh my gosh, that's a grenade at the end of the shot clock that they made 3 of. They're going to get good looks because, quite frankly, Cade is that good. Cade, we talked about the 3-point shooting. I think what this has allowed Cade to do is be the playmaker he wants to be. I think the most underrated aspect is he's averaging almost 10 assists a game. Not very many guys do that, and he's right there.
So last week, we launched a new Patreon tier, the Brunson tier, for those who want to go and sign up for it. And part of the rollout was an X's and O's draft where 4 of us sat down and drafted a different thing in 6 different categories. And one of the categories was shot creator. Okay. My pick was Cade Cunningham in the entire NBA. Now, it was an interesting draft in that as you picked something, like if there was team defense and team offense. So if you picked OKC's offense, the Thunder went off the board.
You can't pick any of their players. Cool.
So like by the time I got to my pick to
you
take
couldn't
Cade,
pick SGA or somebody like that.
So it was like, I would like to take Cade. I took him off the board. But part of the reasoning I used is like there's 2 players in the NBA this year averaging 24 and 9, and it's Jokic and Cade Cunningham. Yeah. So believe me, it's not lost on me that his playmaking has taken a step up as his scoring has also started to become prominent. And look, he'd be an all-star for me as well. If I had a vote that mattered this season and not just some fan votes that count for 3 on certain days, you know?
Listen, I've been trying to think about like team building for this Pistons team. And I do look a little bit at what the Knicks have done. Like I think Cade is in the, okay, Jalen Brunson is your primary shot creator, just like you said. Cade can be that guy. Okay, so now what do you do around that guy? Now you find 3 wings that can defend and ideally space the floor and all of that. Like, they haven't got to that point yet. Like, we'll figure out what these guys are. J.I. was shooting 40% from 3 on the season whenever he went down. Asar and Ron cannot shoot right now, so that you got to figure that out. They look like they're going to be high-level defenders. What is Jalen Duren? What is he not? Like, obviously not going to be a floor spacer like Cade is, but I think that is I think that's what Cade has proven GMAC, and that's the first thing you have to find, right? For the Knicks. Do the Knicks trade for OG? Do they trade for Mikal? Do they trade for Cat if Brunson isn't the first piece that falls into place? No, you don't trade for all those guys if you don't have the guy at the top. And once he proved that he was that guy, now you can go make all those other moves. I think I have enough data now on Cade Cunningham to say he is that guy for the Pistons. Now let's start figuring out a little bit differently than the Knicks. They have to figure out their other young guys if they can be those roles. And then if not, then the moves to get them.
Yeah, that first Jalen Brunson season where he, I think he just missed 3rd team All NBA, but it was very much as Knicks fans, we were frustrated with like losing in the second round to the Heat. But I hope this was public. I'm sorry, Fred Katz, if it wasn't. I'm just going to say it anyway. He was having conversations around the team at Summer League after that season, and while there were Knicks fans that were like, get a new coach, trade Randall, whatever it was. The entire focus of the organization was like, did you see what Jalen Brunson was? Like, the entire focus of the organization is how do we like help that become even better? Because we believe he can get even better and take even more steps. And I just put more into context. Like, we enjoy second round trips to 47 win seasons and trips to the second round and playoff games. But the evaluation of centering all your focus around your best player, it sounds crazy that this is like a revelation, but as someone who's followed a team that hasn't done that often, it's the important thing to do, which is why looking at what the Pistons did this year, they've put an environment around their best player to help him succeed, and he's taken the ball and run with it, and obviously is succeeding. It's been cool to watch.
And real quick, that question was not 100% answered coming into the season, right? Like there were questions about, I guarantee if you go listen to podcasts in the offseason when they gave in the max, people questioned it. I guarantee you, like, I don't have specific examples, but that would be my guess. And so that's what the data collection, again, I know this is just my term for the season.
It's the theme of the pod. I like it. Yeah.
But is Cade for sure this guy? I thought he was, because I watched game in and game out and what he was able to do when that stuff wasn't there. So I felt like able to picture what it would look like when it was there. But it was important to find this stuff out about him. And now that it seems like he's really proven it, now it's about the next stuff. Like, let's find out about these other guys, and how do we, as you point out, our sole focus now is how can we build around that?
Bingo. So last question. Speaking of the Knicks, I obviously have had many a conversation when I get summoned onto the stage at Game Theory and to give my thoughts on the Knicks. And I got to be honest, and I feel bad sometimes when I have to like come in and with like, oh, by the way, here's the Knicks take from the informed Knicks fan, because I want to hear what you guys have to say from an outsider's perspective, at least from an outsider. Like you're not living and dying with this team as I have for the last however many decades. So I actually do want to get your uninterrupted thoughts, your evaluation of the Knicks through, as we discovered today, through 40 games of this season. Bryce, how do you feel about the Knicks, especially compared to how you started the season feeling and how you feel now?
I think they're about where I thought they were going to be at this point. If I had one quote unquote disappointment, I do worry about the defense. I've talked with you about this. I thought I was okay with the idea of, hey, Brunson's not a plus defender, right? He's a little bit smaller, even though he does hold up. I was looking up his stats the other day. He actually draws a bunch of offensive fouls, whether it's navigating screens or whatever. Cat, not the best defender, although that dude is rebounding his butt off, and shout out. I'm a rebounding guy, so every time I see those numbers or watch a game and watch him dominate the boards, I'm like, can we like value this in some way? Like, I realize we maybe want some other things, but rebounding is important, right? I think on both ends of the floor. So I'll give him some love for that. I like the idea of, hey, let's put these wings out here and they're going to dominate defensively. I just want to see that from those guys, right? And I did watch the most recent Knicks game I watched in full was the Bulls game. And we talked about that a little bit. It was the second night of a back-to-back. I think you mentioned on the pod. They just didn't disrupt things. And the more I watch NBA, I think the best defenses disrupt the offense in some way. They're either getting deflections or steals, or they get up in you and get physical or something. I think the Knicks are missing that. And maybe they can't afford to do that because they don't play anybody else. So like, can OG afford to get in foul trouble? We know Brunson can't afford to get in foul trouble. Like, that's my only little concern. Offensively, they're going to be tough as heck to guard because I believe in Brunson. Cat's incredible. I think those other guys, I love Josh Hart as and talk about driving transition. There's not many guys that do it better than him as well. He just makes winning plays. Listen, like we could go through the examples or whatever. I know it's cliche. It's the offensive rebound. It's the tip. It's the loose ball. It's the whatever. He does it and you can always count on him to do it. I worry a little bit about the depth. I worry a little bit about the defense when I'm talking title contenders, right? Like out of respect and what they've done, I think you judge this team on winning a title or at least getting to the finals, right? Like, how do you get out of the East? Those are my two concerns when I judge them on that level of expectation.
So we did our power rankings last night, and I took solace in the perspective that our aggregate was they're the fourth or fifth best team in the NBA. And
yeah, so for the record, Cavs were all of our ones, Thunder were all of our twos, and the Celtics were still all of our threes. And then it was like what the Knicks, the
Memphis,
Grizzlies,
and Houston. Yeah,
Houston were kind of a jumble of 4, 5, and 6. I think I actually had them 4.
I had him 5, Sam had him 6.
Yeah, so like I actually was the one that was the highest on them through that. I think they're the most talented team of that next group, to be quite. And the records are somewhat similar, I believe, between those. And listen, I'm a little bit annoyed by this. Everybody wanted to scream when the Eastern Conference looked like it sucked compared to the West. And then nobody wants to say a word when all of a sudden, if you look at especially the top of the East, but even look at the play-in records of the East, GMAC, there is now, if the Kings if you want to say teams are better than whatever, but if you just look at records, it's somewhat the same in the play-in. And so I'm kind of annoyed that we don't, hey, at least everything is balanced. And like nobody's saying that all of a sudden whenever we wanted to scream the other way.
I think to your point about because I agree with you, the East is significantly better than I think people give it credit for, which is why when the Knicks having the schedule they had, it's like, yeah, I get it. We're the conference they're in. They're still on pace for 54 wins in a conference that has the Cavs and the Celtics in it. I also, I do hear the other side. That's like, if you look at the play-in race for the West, Victor Wembanyama's in it.
Yeah,
James is in it. Steph Curry's in it.
No, if you look team to team, I don't know exactly. I love the Clippers. And so it's the Clippers, the Warriors,
the Wolves. Yeah.
Those teams are all better than the Pistons, right? I understand that. I'm just saying the Pistons are 20-19 and those teams are all the Warriors are I think exactly 500 right now.
500. Yeah.
And so it's just when looking at records, and because that's whenever people say it the other way, that's how they use it, right? Oh, look at the Eastern Conference records over there. They all suck. Like the team and maybe this will flip, but I just think right now, nobody's saying hey, everything's kind of balanced. When you just look at records from both conferences, it's somewhat balanced. If you took a team out of the West and just gave them their record and put them in the East, I don't think their spot in the playoffs would move that much. That was my only thing. And I think the top of the East is good. And I think the Atlanta Hawks are really interesting. That's an interesting team to me. Maybe the Pacers are starting to figure it out. So I just think the East is a little more interesting, but especially at the top. Cavs are awesome. Celtics, I don't know. Maybe they're not going to figure it out. This is weird.
Yeah. They're going to be I think we did this with Golden State, one of the Kevin Durant years where it's is this the year that they're gettable? And then they game one of the playoffs. They won by 700. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
We are in January for a defending title team that's just where multiple of their guys played in the Olympics, some more minutes than others. I think it's hilarious. Steve Kerr figured out how to play 12 guys with the Golden State Warriors, but not with Team. No, I defend.
It's funny. Funny.
I defended Steve Kerr in the Olympics. I don't think that's an easy job. I do think it's funny that then all of a sudden with the Warriors, he's played 17 dudes throughout the season, but he couldn't do it with that team. I do think
for Jason Tatum. Yep.
I do think it's ironic and kind of funny.
Indeed. Well, Bryce, thank you so much. I know you have to run because, as you said earlier, you have a much more important job teaching the youth of America, your day job. So thank you, as always, my friend, for joining me for another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame pod. I hope we get a good game tonight. I hope Brunson plays. Hope you get the data that you want to collect. Before you get out of here, do you want to plug Motor City Hoops and the Pistons Pulse, or do you want me to do it because you have to run?
No, I got a little bit of time here. I will be on time for my students. So Motor City Hoops on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky now as well. Truly check out the Substack. Again, I know GMAC is going to tell you to subscribe. I appreciate his support.
Do it.
Just read after. Even the first stuff, I break down special situations. So if the Knicks go on a run and the Pistons have to call a timeout, I break down what happens out of that timeout. Because I think those are the moments of an NBA game that go underappreciated at times. Or, if a team goes up by 10, can you extend the lead to 20 there in the third quarter? So then you're not playing a close game in the fourth quarter. So read through that. There's some Pistons notes. I started incorporating videos where I show hey, this is how this worked. This is why this guy got open. This was a underrated aspect of something. And then the Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecini, of course. Check that out. GMAC, the man behind the scenes that's crushing and on the scene. Got to work on his trivia, man. I thought I set you up for a dub yesterday, and you struck out. GMAC.
I did throw down the alleys that you threw out for me. I did oop those. It's I got a Portland Trailblazers question, and I've watched 0% of it. If there was a chance to watch negative Blazers games or minutes this year,
I need to look up how many Blazers. Because I keep notes on all the full games I watch. So let me see real quick. Portland Trailblazers. I have watched 9 full Portland Trailblazers games this season with notes.
Well, so I ended up getting a Wizards questions. The Knicks just played the Wizards back-to-back game. I got a Hornets question, and I was like, oh, I've seen a lot of Hornets games. Basically, if you've played the Knicks, I do prep for the pregame pod. So
I just thought the Chargers drawn one would be a knockout because I
got Brunson right. I got that one right.
But I love Toumani Camara, so you just always answer Toumani Camara, and then I just assumed you would get Tim Hardaway Jr. because I feel like I don't tweet a lot about the Pistons anymore. I just time-wise, and I don't watch the games live a lot. But I feel like I've mentioned that as often as possible, but maybe I only do it on the Pistons pod. So
this is a confession time before you get out of here. So I've heard you mention the name Toumani Camara a bunch. Just found out he was on the Portland Trailblazers yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, Toumani Camara. He's probably on a team that I'll eventually figure out one day. And then oh, he's a Blazer. Got it. Okay, cool. So
fair enough.
That should tell you if he has not found his way into my vantage.
Here's the problem. I emptied everything. I emptied all the Toumani Camara trivia yesterday, so now I can't bring it back. So now you're gonna start answering Toumani Camara to everything I ask, and he's not gonna be the answer.
It's literally just who leads the NBA in points this year. Toumani Camara. That's my guess. I'm just assuming he's the answer.
I did the hustle stuff yesterday. I got to find something else out for you.
There you go. Check out Bryce on all of the things he mentioned. Please subscribe to his Substack so it just ends up in your mailboxes, your inboxes, first thing in the morning after a Pistons game. Bryce, as always, it's good to see you here at Knicks Film School here on the pregame pod. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to everybody that tuned in for another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. If you dug it, please head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. If you're watching, please like this video. Remember to subscribe. On the road to 20K, still about 900 short of 20,000 subscribers, so help us get there. Couple of announcements. First of all, this is technically your Monday morning podcast. So John and Jeremy did not do their show because the Knicks play tonight and obviously played last night. They did make predictions, and it's up to me to tell all of you what they predicted for the week. Jeremy ends up winning the week. So for the 3 games that they'll play this week between the Pistons, the Philadelphia 76ers on Wednesday, and the Timberwolves on Friday, Jeremy predicts 2-1, and then John takes 1-2. So if you're wondering what happens with predictions this week, that is what you get. Jeremy's 2-1, John's at 1-2. Speaking of Friday, the New York Knicks will play the Minnesota Timberwolves on Friday, and we will once again be at T-Squared Social for another Knicks Film School watch party. Really great to see everybody turning out, even though these last 2 games were losses, and this most recent one was a bit of a dud. It's been great to interact with so many of you that are able to make it, coming from all over the planet too. It seems like it's people coming from Jersey, people coming from Connecticut. Someone came from Texas, from Florida. I'm waiting for someone to come from the moon, and then I'll officially be able to say that we are the brand is global. I guess international, intergalactic would actually be the word that I'm trying to go for there. All that being said, join us this Friday, even if you're just coming from down the block, T-Squared Social, 42nd Street, East 42nd Street, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Grand Central Station. I was told it was not Grand Central Station. It's Grand Central Terminal from Grand Central. It's on 42nd Street. So join us there this Friday. Be there at BT Squared. I'll be back on Wednesday. The Knicks take a trip to the city of brotherly losers, brotherly love, to play the Philadelphia 76ers. And I'll have a pregame pod with a guest soon to be announced. So tune in for that. We will have a playback watch along tonight as well. So especially if you're an Optimum subscriber, join John and Benji, and maybe somebody else will show up at some point for that watch along tonight. I believe that's everything. Until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the game tonight, and I'll speak with you soon. Peace.